Article 6, the Certificate of Need reform. Certificates of need were first conceived by the federal government back in the early 70s in an attempt to restrict access to health care. I'm going to say it again. The certificates of need were implemented to restrict access to health care because of increasing costs. There was a state of mind, a process where someone in the federal government believed that if you stop people from starting to provide a service, that somehow people will stop asking for that service because it's not there, therefore decreasing the cost of healthcare costs in the country. Getting into the late 70s, early 80s, the federal government realized it didn't work because of the third-party payer system. Because we have so many third-party payers, the system doesn't work. Cons are not effective at reducing costs, but they were very good at reducing access. So the federal government removed their requirement for states to have these certificates of need. And over the course of the years, going back to Representative Tanzi's question in terms of the move towards the removal of certificates of need, I think we're down to only, so statistically, 60% of Americans live under states with reduced or no certificates of need, where only 40% of Americans live under states that have some variation of certificate of need or high burden certificates of need. So that's what they do. They restrict access, but the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, states what they do, and it doesn't matter whether it be the current administration or the Obama administration, and it doesn't make a difference from Reagan until the current administration. All the certificates of need do is protect the current people, the current providers. They stop the competitors from coming in and providing the additional care. So it just protects the existing folks that are doing it. It doesn't do anything to improve care. It doesn't do anything like that. It just stops additional players from coming in and potentially providing additional care. And the example would be, a couple of years back, what was it? Escape Health Rehab tried to open a facility in Johnston. They went through the certificate of need process, and they were rejected. They had to appeal that process, and they eventually won in court, and they eventually opened a 50-bed facility in Johnston. And so, again, one of the few things, there's two pieces that are in the works right now for Rhode Island's healthcare system. One short-term, all right, that to fix the system, to get it going without increasing rates, is Representative Brian's 340B program, which would instantly provide money back into our healthcare system. The other one on the long term is the governor's, and I'm saying this, I'm providing I'm happy with the governor's budget. Wouldn't do what I would do. There's still more to go, but these curtailings of the certificate of need long term are going to make Rhode Island's healthcare system healthier. And by taking a step back, by starting to exempt organizations or different services, that's exactly what it is. It's a step back. So I want to talk about some review articles. All right, there have been 45 empirical assessments on certificates of need and spending per service. 60% of those correlated cons with higher spending per service. 7 associated with cons with lower spending, and 33 found no result. 52 empirical tests on overall spending. 44% associated cons with higher overall spending. 40% showed negligible. 15 associated cons with lower spending. 190 tests associated with the effects of cons on access to care. Again, what they're intended to do. 52% found that cons associated with diminished access. 38 find associated with negligible, no impact at all. Only 10% of those 190 said cons provide greater access. 114 tests were assessed that affect the cons on quality. Only 46% associated regulations with lower quality, 39 insignificant or neutral, 16 associated the regulation with better quality. 17 tests associated cons with encouraging the financing or providing of care to rural or otherwise underprovided communities. Representative Diaz, your community underprovided, my community underprovided. 82% find cons undermine the provisions of care in those groups. 82% undermine access to care. 18% find no significant impacts. 0% show cons enhance provisions of care for underserved populations. Certificates of need are bad things for our healthcare system. And I'm standing here to oppose any exemptions to the governor's recommendations because they're bad. They will not do things to improve our healthcare system. For the record, I think you guys should have the original FTC report, which has been consistent since the Obama administration on what cons do. And also you'll find original testimony from the Pacific Legal Foundation, Jamie Kavanaugh, who also testified on the original budget amendment. Pacific Legal Foundation, for the record, is also the organization that's representing the property owners in Johnston that are trying to build the low-income housing in Johnston. So these folks are on the side of different sides of issues, but they know what they're talking about. The data shows cons are bad for healthcare and access and quality. And while the governor's proposal doesn't go far enough for me, it's still better than what we had before. And any step backs, as in saying this one shouldn't be in or this one shouldn't be in, would be bad for Rhode Islanders and our healthcare. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.